Greetings travelers, and welcome to another Tempo Storm Wild Meta video. Throughout the Year of the Dragon, the Wild format has been dominated by Mage and Warlock, and at rank 5 and above, the two classes together make up more than 50% of the meta. Even in this state, a recent series of tweets from Team 5 member Dean Ixar Ayala suggested that no balance changes were in the works for Wild, but the Wild community as a whole agrees that it's time for something to change. The format has been pushed in an unhealthy direction by a handful of Year of the Dragon cards, and in this video, we'll take a closer look at what those cards are and what changes we would like to see to improve the health of Wild. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to our Tempo Storm Hearthstone YouTube channel to keep up to date with our Hearthstone content. Now let's begin. The Year of the Dragon brought about a massive shift in the Wild meta, starting with the rise of Secret Mage during Saviors of Uldum. Flame Ward and Cloud Prince were certainly strong cards, but it was Arcane Flakmage that brought it over the top. Before Flakmage, Secret Mage was a common sight on ladder, but it didn't fare well against other Wild aggro decks like Odd Paladin and even Shaman. With Arcane Flakmage in the mix, Secret Mage now has a cheap AoE removal option that makes it difficult for other aggro decks to gain a foothold against it. After Saviors was released, Secret Mage became massively popular, and its popularity not only forced out the aggro decks that couldn't beat Flakmage, but also forced out slower decks that had poor matchups against Secret Mage to begin with, such as even Warlock and Big Priest. It's clear that Arcane Flakmage is a problem, but what's the best way to nerf it? Increasing Arcane Flakmage's mana cost from 2 mana would be a reasonable solution. Even a small increase from 2 to 3 mana would make it more difficult for a Secret Mage to clear a wide board in the early turns, forcing Mage to rely on discounts from cards like Cabal Lackey and Ancient Mysteries. This would make Secret Mage's defenses less consistent, but it still might not be enough, so what about changing Flakmage's effect? Changing Flakmage to deal only 1 damage to all minions, or to deal its 2 damage only to a random enemy minion instead of all of them, would make it much more difficult for a Secret Mage to deal with wide boards. Either of these changes would reverse Secret Mage's dominant position against aggro and mid-range, giving those decks more breathing room to develop. Nerfing Arcane Flakmage is a good first step, but Flakmage isn't the only AoE removal that's bending the meta around it. Plague of Flames is another powerhouse card from Saviors of Uldum that completely changes the Wild landscape. Plague of Flames is arguably the most powerful removal spell ever made in Hearthstone, allowing Warlocks to clear virtually any threat. Plague's drawback that destroys your own minions is easy enough to work around by playing cheap death rattles or tokens, and in many cases, the drawback is actually a benefit that activates powerful death rattles like Nerubian Egg and Carnivorous Cube. In a deck like Cube Warlock, Plague can be a massive tempo swing that fills your board at the expense of your opponents, and in decks like Mechathune Warlock, it helps you draw cards and buy time to assemble your combo. Plague is a universal inclusion in every strong Warlock deck, and is a big factor in Warlock's dominance. So what's the best way to fix Plague of Flames? Simply make it more expensive. By changing it to cost 3 mana or more, Plague would be more difficult to use, since it would be harder to play a bunch of cheap minions in the same turn, and it would be much more awkward to use as a cube activator. Of course, Warlock will still have efficient removal options like Defile and Dark Skies, but these options don't have the same synergies and are easier to play around. Nerfing Plague of Flames would be a big change, but there's more to Wild Warlock than just Cube and Mechathune. Darkest Hour Warlock is another scary sight on the Wild ladder, and it's all thanks to the combo between its namesake card Darkest Hour and the combo enabler Bloodbloom. These two cards allow Warlock to swarm the board with more than 40 mana worth of massive minions as early as turn 4. It wasn't that long ago that the community rallied against early big minion boards from cards like Barnes and Naga Sea Witch, and while Darkest Hour isn't quite as consistent as Giants Warlock or Big Priest were, when the Darkest Hour combo goes off, the result is just as oppressive. The community at large is eager to see Team 5 remove the Darkest Hour combo from Wild, but what would be the best way to do it? The fix is trickier than it looks because nerfing Darkest Hour's cost does nothing to slow the combo down, since you're paying life to play the card instead of mana. Instead, we'd recommend changing Darkest Hour's effect. For instance, instead of destroying all of your minions and summoning a minion for each one destroyed, it could destroy and then summon only a limited number of minions. Such a redesign might be enough to remove the Darkest Hour combo from the format altogether. Another option is to simply nerf Bloodbloom. Increasing Bloodbloom's mana cost to 3 or 4 is one option that would delay the combo considerably, making it much easier to beat them before the combo goes off or deal with their board afterwards. Nerfing Bloodbloom would also have an impact on Mechathune Warlock at the same time, but that might be a good thing since Mechathune Warlock discourages fatigue decks like Jade Druid and Odd Warrior from seeing more play. Either way, whether they nerf Bloodbloom or Darkest Hour itself, the Wild community is eager to see Darkest Hour Warlock drop out of ladder's top tiers. Last, but certainly not least, let's talk about Open the Waygate. Open the Waygate is the linchpin card for Reno Quest Mage, which is currently considered the best deck in Wild. The quest reward, Time Warp, allows you to take an extra turn, and when used with Archmage Vargoth in play, you can take 2 extra turns in a row, which is usually more than enough to finish the opponent off in one way or another. Open the Waygate goes all the way back to Journey to Ungoro, and while Quest Mage decks have drifted in and out of viability since then, the quest has never been a real problem until just recently. So what changed? New cards introduced in the Year of the Dragon now make it easier to complete without having to sacrifice tempo or rely on randomly generated spells. With the added consistency and plenty of card draw to hit the full Vargoth combo by turn 9, most late game decks in Wild are nowhere near fast enough to compete. So what is the best way to fix Open the Waygate? Since Open the Waygate has symmetry with the rest of the Ungoro quests, Team 5 is unlikely to change the mana cost of the quest or its reward. Instead, they would probably change either the requirements to complete the quest or change the effect of the reward itself. For the requirements, they should change it so you would need more spells, i.e. change it from 6 spells to 8 spells, which would slow Quest Mage down significantly. Another reasonable change would be to make it so that you can't take 2 turns in a row. This makes it possible for control decks to set up a reasonable defense to survive Quest Mage's extra turn by either gaining armor or using disruptive cards. Either of these changes reduce the power of Quest Mage without crippling them, and would certainly be a welcome change to the competitive landscape. Altogether, balance changes in Wild are a hot topic, and the community is eager to see some changes that bring both Mage and Warlock down a peg and make the rest of the classes more viable once again. We've shared some ideas for nerfs we'd like to see, but they're not the only changes that would shake up the format. Let us know in the comments what changes you'd like to see in Wild, and as always, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Storm Hearthstone YouTube channel to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching.